say you have a person that maybe they're a little bit more pragmatic by nature and may not have identified a passion, but they've identified a skill that they know they're good at and they don't mind doing. So the same would apply?
Yeah, the same would apply.
Yeah.
Now, you can start off working that skill with another company. You have to start off somewhere. You got to pay your dues. You always have to pay. But while you're working that, you're learning all the aspects of how the business runs. You're doing your research, you're learning. And then on the side, you may start doing your own thing. That doesn't mean you're trying to steal business from that company, but eventually your main goal, your main plan is to be able to be your own boss.
Right.
And sometimes you've got to pay your dues. And you may even have a chance to branch off from that company, maybe start a franchise. But while you're doing these things, you have to be able to spend your money the right way. Live within your means, live within your budget, make the right investments. Don't keep blowing money on partying and hanging out and things that have no value.
Right.
At some point, you've got to say, look, I partied the majority of my early years. I got to sit down and grind right now.
Right.
You know, in my early years, I was grinding. Right. Now I'm at the point, if I want to, I can sit back and relax.
Right.
I flipped it.
So, I mean, you're talking about a certain level of consciousness, obviously, that needs to be there to begin with.
Right.
I talked to a woman recently who runs an employment service for day workers. And she said, same thing every year. In this strata, you're probably not going to get the message through. She said, I've done this for many years. Every time there's a tax season, there's a little bit of money that comes back, we can't find workers. Right now, that's kind of what's happening in America because no one wants to go back to those jobs. You're talking unskilled labor jobs. And when it comes to that, I mean, how do you address it?
I tell people, listen, well, first of all, we have to realize one thing. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink because you're thirsty. I add that little extra piece to it. And so somebody has to become thirsty for themselves.
Yes, that's
It's just
the
like
key.
being addicted to any kind of a drug or anything. If you don't admit that you have a problem, you'll never be able to get healed or cured. Okay, so the first thing is the person has to be real with themselves. I have a problem with handling and managing money. It's been generational. Through all the generations up until me, it's been like that, or at least within some time period, the way that I started managing money, it's been horrible. I have to admit, that person has to admit that they've got a problem with that and be willing to want to learn. And especially if they have a family or if they started a family, they've got to realize, wow, I'm just burning through everything and churning through everything. I'm not leaving anything for my kids.
Right.
I'm not leaving anything for the future. And so, yes, you can't take it with you, but you can set up future generations who are still going to be here to have a chance, an opportunity to maneuver and do something in this world.
Absolutely. And now we're going to go off on a sidetrack and go tangential for a minute. And this is big for you personally.
Yeah.
And this is something, before we get in, I'm just going to kind of flip through randomly and say, okay, what about this one here? You personally are getting together with your family in the not too distant future, and you're going to have a party and do a will reading.
Yes.
Now, you're a young man, so some people would say, wow, you got it together, you're doing this so young. But it's far more than that. And you shared something with me off camera that I wasn't aware of. And you said, this is not something that's done in the African American community in general.
That's right, in general.
And it's like,
not done.
what? So let's talk about this, why you're doing this, and what goes on there that it spooks a person from doing that.
Yeah. Again, everybody's heard my story. I grew up in the ghetto.
Yeah.
And talking about life insurance policies, nobody had money for life insurance policy unless they had a really good city job or something, but they gave them a term policy that was kind of included for accidental death.
Right.
Nobody really invested in those kind of things. And talking about dying or talking about a will never happened. And so quite often what you'd see over all these decades that I've been alive now, I've seen so many GoFundMe accounts, so many donations, or before GoFundMe, selling T-shirts on the corner and selling hot plates of food at the church to try to raise money to buy a $5,000 casket. And so I'm saying to myself, when is this going to end? I've got to be the one to end it. Even in my own family, when my mom and dad passed away, nothing. Zero.
And why is there fear of talking about death and what comes after you?
It's so weird. It's so bizarre. It just seemed like some type of a weird taboo where nobody wants to talk about it.
Is it like jinxes you if you talk about your death?
I believe that's what they think. It's like, it feels like a jinx. It means I'm going to die now all of a sudden if I talk about it. There's one thing about talking about something and figuratively and just talking about it in general, saying, look, if this happens, and there's another thing about saying, I'm going to die. Those are two different things.
Right.
But they take it as the other, like, oh, I'm going to die soon, so this is what we need to talk about. And people were, I don't want to talk about it. Are you something wrong with you? Even my own kids, I said, we're going to have this meeting about my will and testament.
So they know what they're gathering.
Yeah.
They didn't like it.
They didn't like it. Why? Why are we doing this? I said, because somebody needs to do it. And it's going to start here. I'm going to break this generational curse. Now we're going to fix this problem. And if something happens to me, you guys are going to know. And I want it recorded on audio and video so that nobody's fighting. Another thing that happens, too, is people who are left some things, I've seen this too many times, bickering, fighting, lawsuits.
Oh, yeah.
He said this, she said that. No, they didn't say that. No, you're not supposed to get this. When my mom passed away, people came to my mom's house and started clearing out things out of the house. I didn't even have a chance to go there myself.
Yeah.
I didn't even get there yet. Things are getting taken out of the house.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that in films, like on islands in Greece where someone dies and all the women come in and just start scavenging.
Yeah, that's what happens, literally. And I'm like, wow, are you serious? So I said, this can't happen.
Good for you, Billy, and I hope the message makes it out to a wider audience. I mean, obviously, you're reaching a lot of people now, but it's just something, again, that I wouldn't have ever known about.
There's something intricate here, too. It's not just my will and my testament, and this
Yeah.
is what's going to happen with my businesses and my percentage of companies that I own. It's also spelled out there specifics as to what you need to, what you're required to do to acquire any of this money. You're not just going to get money. Your credit score has to be a certain number. You have to be gainfully employed or in your own business. If you're not, then you have to go get a job or start a business and be in it for at least 1 year. If you're like my grandkids, that's going into a trust. When they turn 18, they get some. When they turn 25, they get some more. When they turn 30, they get some more. You can't give somebody all that money at 18.
Right.
There's the requirements in there. You're not just going to walk in, oh, thank you for the money, and go, screw it up. And you have to come to my financial workshops, just in family, and understand how to manage and use and run money. And if you don't attend them, then you get nothing.
Right. Well, and what's so amazing about you is, well, a lot of things, but you're so highly developed in this area now, and we're going to talk about partly how you got there, and also the fact that you're so highly developed in the world of esoterica and understanding the underlying matrices and principles behind how manifestation, how life, how reality itself functions, and essentially and how everything manifests into our reality, this third dimensional reality. And you're right, we're totally stupid if we think that we can live in a third dimensional reality and not know anything about how to make a living.
Right.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Like, what are we doing here?
And speaking of, okay, so I told you I'm going to go randomly. So I opened the page to this. You can give us a setup before this, and I want to talk about your Billy Club plan. It says control the matrix. You have to play in this matrix.
Yes.
So let's start there.
Well, we have to first understand, like admitting that you're an addict or something like that, or a poor money manager. You have to admit it. Well, we have to admit that we're in a matrix. Some people don't want to admit that we're in different levels of matrices. We have the financial matrix, we have the esoteric matrix, we have the holographic matrix. There's different ones. The financial matrix, everybody can relate to that. There's a system that's been set up globally that keeps us working and paying taxes and churning, right, until we die. Well, we have to admit that it's real. Some people don't want to admit it's real. It's a real thing, and you have to know how to play in it. So you have to understand that there's a system here, but just like Neo in the Matrix movie, he was able to maneuver through that system, understanding the inner workings of the Matrix. He was able to make it bend to his will.